What's up, FA Nation? It is Tuesday, the day after Monday Night Football, and the day we have some pretty big news coming through. I'm your host, Jen Piacenti, and I'm here with none other than Jon Impemba. What's up, Jon Impemba?
I'm doing pretty good. Again, coming out of sort of a train wreck week 2, full of injuries. You're right, though. We did maybe have an answer to one of those scenarios there following the Barkley out for the year. Devonta Freeman now apparently signing with the Giants.
Yeah, we're going to go through all the injury stuff, guys. We're going to recap last night's game, but let's go ahead and get right to what everybody wants to talk about, the Devonta Freeman news. So it looks like pending a physical, he is going to be a Giant. So the question is, how much fab do I spend on a 28-year-old running back that wasn't very good last year that's going to be part of an anemic offense? Because I lost Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I feel like because of the lack of depth out there, people are going to be throwing a lot of money around. You may have to go 25, 35% of your budget here just to get a guy that maybe you can roster. It could be a complete disaster. He could show that he had nothing left. The one thing I will say maybe about Freeman here is while he definitely had a bad year, he did still total 1,000 yards on offense in 14 games. He was still very active in the passing attack. He's an upgrade over Dion Lewis and Wayne Gallman, I have to assume. But like you said, Saquon Barkley couldn't get anything going behind this offensive line. What can we really expect out of a guy who hasn't been on a team, for the past offseason up until now? So I'm definitely setting my limitations on what my expectations will be on him. But I feel like given what else is out there, you almost have to spend the money there because he's going to at least provide maybe the most upside if you're in a 12, 14-team league.
Right. Now, what if you're the Christian McCaffrey owner? Would you target Freeman? Because he could be back in 4 to 6 weeks.
I would trust Mike Davis more than I would Freeman, I think, because again, if you're looking for a straight handcuff, now if you're in a situation where your running backs aren't great and you lost Christian McCaffrey, maybe you go Freeman because he has more longer-term potential upside than Davis would have with McCaffrey out. But if you're just looking for a straight handcuff buy, I think Davis is your guy. He's shown in the past that he can be a successful, fantasy running back. He caught 8 passes last week, so it shows that he's not going to be, completely void in the passing game. So I think Davis, if you're a McCaffrey owner that just needs a McCaffrey handcuff, you go that direction. If you need a guy to maybe be a flex starter for your weekly team or an RB2 maybe even, if you're really in dire straits, then I think you have to go the Freeman route because the job is probably going to be his. But the problem here is Freeman's going to sign this week. He may not even be valuable to you for 2 weeks as he learns the system, gets acclimated. So, it's not a great scenario, but, as every year, running back depth is so shallow. He's basically the belle of the ball this week.
Right. And for those of you that got him for $1 in your auction league or got him in the 20th round, congratulations. You could have really made the right choice.
If you didn't drop him already, right? People might have been dropping him last week because they needed space for all the injuries that they suffered. So, if you were able to hold on to him for 2 weeks, congrats. You may have something here now.
So that's one of the interesting things, though, is do we have any reports on what he signed for? Because obviously many teams have been courting Devonta Freeman, but he said, no, that's not enough money. So the question I have is, did he finally give in and say, okay, I got to take one of these jobs because I need money? Or was he actually in the one power position here bargaining, saying, look, you guys are desperate. Somebody's going to sign me. You got to pay me.
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think he was looking for more money, or he was looking for an opportunity where he could actually play. Obviously, there was rumors all around. He was looking at Seattle. He was looking at Philadelphia. He was looking at Tampa Bay. But there was never like a clear-cut option for him to be able to get snaps in those situations because he's looking for a chance to extend his career. Like, he doesn't want to just sign somewhere, be a backup, not do anything, and then next year he's in the same situation. I think this is an opportunity where he probably had the Giants being like, all right, you'll have an opportunity to be our number one back. I mean, Wayne Gallman was inactive last week. That's how little, the Giants think of him. So I think Freeman saw this as his best opportunity to show he's still a capable NFL running back, and he probably was willing to take whatever the offer was, just given the opportunity.
I'm curious to see what it's going to be. But again, Saquon Barkley is out for the season. That's true. Devonta Freeman is a 3-down back. He probably will be the bell cow back for the Giants. He certainly doesn't seem to have a big threat from either Dion Lewis or Wayne Gallman. So all of those claims are still valid, as you said. The Giants do have tough matchups, I think, for another week or two as well. So I don't think you need to be putting any eggs in the Giants' backfield basket, but sometimes you're in a situation where you have to. So Saquon's out. Devonta's the one to target, but it wouldn't hurt necessarily to take a shot on, I would say, Dion Lewis, not right?
At this point, I know last night I was on with, Fensty on Alarm After Hours. He asked me what I would spend on Dion Lewis. I said, 10, 15% of your budget. I may, bump that down a little bit now, 5, 10%, $10, $5 on him. Because again, I don't think the role is going to really be his. And what is his true upside? He doesn't really have it much as a runner, behind that offensive line. He can pass catch. We saw him, I think it was 4 catches he had last week. But, again, what's the total upside there? I don't want to be spending a lot of money on Dion Lewis either. So Freeman's the guy.
Now, I want to bring up something that's been talked about, and the NFL is actually investigating it, but it's the turf at MetLife Park. Okay, so I was looking at who to target because I lost Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley in various leagues. Actually, in the 2 fantasy alarm leagues I had, I don't have either of them anywhere else, interestingly enough. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I was looking at Jerick McKinnon. But then I think this guy's already been injured and he's going to be playing on that turf again. Is that too risky? And now we're talking about Devonta Freeman playing with the team that plays at home at MetLife Park. Yeah. Saquon's obviously injured. Sterling Shepard's are obviously injured. They got 3 players for San Francisco injured last week. Their quarterback, their
whole defense.
Their defense, Nick. But two defensive players that are fantastic. I mean, like, they're in trouble. So I just wonder, like, should we avoid Giants or anyone playing at Giants Stadium because they could get injured? Is that a reasonable thing to think about?
I have to believe after the stink that they're putting up above the field that they're probably going to do better field maintenance this week.
I would hope so. Le'Veon Bell too. I mean, everybody that's played there.
Yeah, so that's my opinion, is that they're probably, if they're really looking into it, they're going to have to make some changes to the field conditions. If that ends up being the case and they find that the field really was roughed up or the seams from the turf wasn't layered correctly or whatever. But yeah, I think McKinnon has to be a guy you're going to have to look at. Him and Jeff Wilson, make sure Wilson's on your radar. I think I saw it was a sprained MCL for Mostert. He's week to week. And then we haven't gotten the official diagnosis on Coleman, I don't think, but they said his knee injury is potentially pretty serious that will cause him to miss multiple weeks. So, McKinnon could very well be the early guy to get carries there. He only had 3 last week. He had 77 yards due to a big run. He involved in the passing tack. So, McKinnon's probably the first guy you go with. But don't, sleep on Wilson if you really need a deep dive. Maybe he becomes a deep cuts player for you later this week, huh?
Yeah, I think that he probably is going to be in the deep cuts video. Hey, by the way, one of those deep cuts actually paid off last week. Dalton Schultz made the video.
I mean, wow, Dalton Schultz.
Who knew? And he might be a good bargain candidate this week on FanDuel, but I'm going to avoid him because we already did Dalton Schultz. I don't want to go back to that well. We're going to find a new one. But I also wanted to ask about Henderson. So if you're Darrell Henderson, if you're ranking, let's say Dion Lewis, Mike Davis, Darrell Henderson, and Jerick McKinnon, like, what would your priority be?
Yeah, I mean, I want to know the status of Malcolm Brown here. Obviously, he had the finger injury that he was dealing with, and I guess he's day-to-day. And obviously, Akers has got the separated rib cartilage that also has him day-to-day. McVay keeps on talking about this is going to be like a 3-headed monster, but it seems like whenever one of the other running backs isn't in there, the other one pops off. So I may rank Henderson based on the injury statuses of those 2 guys ahead of the other group there. I'd probably go McKinnon 2, Davis 3, and Lewis 4.
That was my order as well. So good. I'm glad to be backed by a competent authority. That makes me feel better because I gotta go make some claims. Like, I'm not like making it rain out there.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I have a team where my starting roster is actually very strong, but my bench is just taking an absolute beating with injuries and just poor overall play. Where now I'm looking at the waivers like, I have to revamp because bye weeks are coming. If anything happens to my starters, I'm going to be in trouble. So gotta look at, make some moves. And Fency's always preaching, just because you're happy with what your team's doing now, don't just sleep on the waivers. Always be looking to make those slight improvements to your roster because you may need it down the road.
I mean, I'm not going to lie that I've already made some preventative claims for myself in certain leagues. Like there are leagues where I'm 100% healthy, I'm nailing it, but I went out and made some claims for some of these running backs because I want insurance.
Right.
I just want even more insurance. And now that we've seen how things are going, I feel like there are some options that are better than others. And also, hey, it might block somebody else, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with
becomes
playing
trade value
defensively.
maybe later in the season too. So
That's
yeah, I agree.
right. That's right. So that's what I've been doing. So let's jump back and review last night's game a little bit. It was so much fun. I loved that it was an upset. I love that it was a home game, a success, their first time in the stadium. And let's just talk about some initial impressions. First off, how much did you freak out when Josh Jacobs came off the field for a brief visit to the medical tent?
I mean, it would have made sense, right? Just the way that everything was going this year, that Jacobs would all of a sudden have something wrong with him. Pull up lame, and you're like, oh, here we go again. Another top running back. That's going to go down. But happy to see him come out there. I wasn't very high on him in this matchup. I know he ended up, I think, 88 yards, but the Saints defense still very good against the run. He only had 3.3 yards per carry. So, if you're a fantasy owner, you probably didn't get the overall upside that you were hoping for. My biggest question here is, what were the Saints defense looking at when Darren Waller's all over the field? He was literally the only guy that was getting the football, and they could not stop him. It was 12 catches, 16 targets. All they got to do is put Lattimore or a body on him, double him, and nobody else is doing anything in that offense. He basically let him single-handedly beat them.
Darren Waller, who gave me those Monday night points that really pushed me over the top in 2 different leagues that I'm playing in that I really want to win. And thank you to Darren Waller. I believed in you, buddy. And I believe in your positive touchdown regression. I know Adam Ronis doesn't, but I do. So I loved seeing it. But yeah, it was just like they let him go wherever he wanted. And it was obvious that's who Carr was going to target. I mean, the guy's really talented, don't get me wrong, but they really dropped the ball on that.
Yeah, it didn't make any sense. And I'm with you there. I benefited from Waller as well. I'm in a league that does do the weekly high-scoring payouts. And Waller and Kamara were both in my lineup, and I was able to eclipse the guy who had 150-something points. I put up 160 for the week in the half-point PPR and was able to snag the first place money prize for the week. So big Darren Waller fan myself. I was getting him like 6th round in drafts this year. He was like my tight end to target the way he was falling. And I'm like, did everybody just forget what he did last year? There's no reason to be taking some of these other guys ahead of him or letting him fall as far as that he was in drafts. I got him in Scott Fish, paired him up with Mark Andrews. I saw that you have Higbee coming off his monster game, and also Waller.
I have Higbee and Waller.
Yeah, kudos to you on that one. So, big Waller fans over here at FA Nation.
Yeah, my question, so Kamara, obviously a monster game, and he has another really strong matchup this week from what I can tell. So are we talking about Kamara being the number 1 guy next year, or is it going to be Zeke, do you think? I know it's early.
Yeah, I think it's going to be another conversation you're going to have. I want to see how he finishes this year. Kamara's always been top 5, in terms of rankings anyways. If he comes out and has a 1,000 season, you're going to have to consider him among the McCaffrey's, Elliott's, Barkley's, I think. Barkley probably falls back down now. 2 straight years with an injury, and then this year coming off the torn ACL, he probably ends up falling into the behind that pack. I was actually fortunate this year, and I was kind of taking a little flack for it. In leagues where I had the 2nd pick in drafts, I was taking Zeke over Saquon. So it certainly helped me out there. I kind of believe in that this year.
I kind of believe in Zeke more than Saquon. I always have. And I feel like he's sturdier. And I think so much to the running back position is just being sturdy, being able to take a beating. And
I just like the offense. I felt like the Cowboys were going to score more points than the Giants. To me, that was a no-brainer. And people were like, oh, the Giants are behind. They'll be throwing to Barkley. I'm like, sure, but I want them to score touchdowns, and Vegas has them projected for 4 wins. If they're not going to be scoring touchdowns, and Barkley doesn't have the same upside. Now, of course, as a Zeke owner, I watched Dak Prescott rush for 3 touchdowns on Sunday. Wanted to run around and scream, but
Zeke still got 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, he still got in there, but I mean, come on, let Zeke. He had 1. He had 1 touchdown.
Had one. Okay, that's right. Because 1 got called back.
Yeah. Dak rushing for 3. I'm like, oh, come on, man. Give Zeke the ball.
I played Dak and FanDuel, and I was super happy about my game.
I actually did the opposite side of that stack, and I was surprised in DFS this week how low ownership guys like Ryan and Ridley and everybody had, and Hayden Hurst compared, but everybody played the Dallas side of that game, so I was looking really good early on because Dallas wasn't doing anything, and all the chalk was on that side. But of course, they came back and put up a ton of points. But yeah, man, getting those 3 touchdowns vultured for me, that's supposed to happen to Zach Moss and Devin Singletary or Mark Ingram with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson stealing rushing touchdowns, not Dak getting 3.
I think Dak Prescott rushed for 3 touchdowns and threw for over 400 yards. It was an absolutely monster performance. You got to put him in the conversation this year for MVP alongside Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. We'll see what happens.
Hey, Dak was the number 2 fantasy quarterback last year. Another reason why I was targeting him in a lot of drafts. Like, don't sleep on Dak Prescott either on that offense. And CeeDee Lamb, fantastic, start to his career there through the 2 games. And that whole offense is humming right now.
The whole offense, and CeeDee Lamb looks good again for this week for the matchup versus Seattle. Seattle giving up the most points to the quarterback position, the most points to the wide receiver position. So when I'm going into my DFS slates, I'm targeting Dallas again, not just because I'm a Dallas fan. And I'm also going to look at the Seattle side because look at Russ. Russ also won me something late on Sunday night that it seemed like I shouldn't win. So just ridiculous. And DK Metcalf, just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, Metcalf, again, 2 big, long touchdowns back-to-back weeks. And that's the boom or bust potential for DFS right there. Lockett's the guy that I think you can rely on more for catches and yardage. But, if DK is going to get those 40-yard touchdowns each week, then you're going to have the sustained fantasy upside there as well. I'm a big fan of him. I love that they're letting Russell throw a little bit more this year, because he's one of these top 5 quarterback. I mean, he has all the talent in the world. So, but quarterbacks this year are off to, tremendous starts. You and I, obviously, in the offseason, we had our back and forth between Cam Newton and Ryan Tannehill. So far, neither of us are wrong. So
that's right. We're not. And I will tell you right now that in my bargains video, I'm going back to Ryan Tannehill again because somehow, guys, he's priced less than Mitch Trubisky. I don't know what a guy has to do to get some respect. He threw for 4 touchdown passes last week. And as someone who rostered Derrick Henry and FanDuel, that was frustrating because I wanted Derrick. It should have been a Henry game.
Yeah.
But I also happened to have Jonnu Smith, so it turned out okay in the end. I don't know what a guy has to do to get some respect. But who do you like better, Tannehill or Minshew?
So that's again, like I just don't know how Tannehill is able to sustain this because Henry is their offense, but I've been proven wrong for basically 2 straight weeks here. But I mean, Minshew's looked really good as well. 3 touchdowns in each of the games, completing over 70% of his passes. He has some running upside. Maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Robinson because he had 100 yards rushing last week as well. And
another surprise.
To be a capable guy. Oh man, I mean, I probably would go with your guy here. I think maybe Tannehill is kind of on a heater, like you said. What is it now? 9 straight weeks of at least 2 touchdowns or something like that. So yeah, I may have to go ahead and give the nod to Tannehill this week.
Let me ask you this: veteran quarterbacks, in my eyes, they're not looking so good. Drew Brees did not look good last night. He looked like he could barely throw the ball. Ben looked okay. Tom Brady, I mean, they won, but it's really underwhelming.
Yeah, he still definitely looks like he is trying to get a feel for everything. Yeah. He realizes that he's not in New England anymore. I was reading a stat the other day. Through 2 games, the Patriots offense has yet to commit a foul or a penalty, while the Tampa Bay has like 15 or something. Like they're just like poorly coached teams. They're not on the same page. He's missing weapons. Obviously, Godwin being out. Gronk looks like a shell of his shell.
Yes.
He doesn't even look, like he was 2 years ago when he was looking washed up. I mean, he gets Godwin back, and I think they're finally going to start pushing more to Fournette over Rojo, which is my opinion all along. Let Fournette get more acclimated to the offense and slowly overtake that. So maybe there's more of a threat there for him. But those guys aren't looking good. I wasn't high on Breeze. The fact that he wasn't going to be in New Orleans, he tends to struggle on the road, even though this was a dome game as well. No Michael Thomas clearly changes a big thing in their offense, struggles there. I still think Big Ben looks okay. I mean, I know he's
That's
not
okay.
wowing you, but
Yeah, that's
you
okay.
know, he still
Yeah.
gave you 302 scores. The offense there is fine. So Ben for me is at the top of that list. We'll see if
Me
Brady
too.
can get
What
it
about
going.
Philip Rivers? Where would you put Philip Rivers in there?
If Rivers doesn't get it done this week, I think he is, not even startable. Again, we're talking about a matchup against the Jets at home where he should, in theory, be able to put up some numbers. Um, no Paris Campbell, how is that going to impact things? T.Y. Hilton's dropping touchdowns, so maybe that's hurting Rivers, stat line as well. But I mean, this is a matchup against the Jets that he should have big success. I was on him this week. I didn't play him, but I kind of liked his potential. Everybody's saying he had a bad game week 1, and I was like, yeah, he didn't look good for like actual football, but for fantasy, he threw for like 360 yards and gave you like 18 fantasy points. So I thought like, okay, if he can just do that, I'm more than okay with it. But yeah, it came down to earth hard against was it the Vikings last week. So we'll see how he does at home against the Jets this week.
Yeah, and speaking of Philip Rivers' weapons, who do we upgrade now without Paris Campbell? By the way, for those who are freaking out about Nyheim Hines, I don't think that's going to stay. I still think Nyheim Hines was a good buy and is going to be part of that offense. But what did he get? 1 target last week? They used
one
Wilkins?
target, no carries. I couldn't believe how you go like from extremes. Like it does, I don't really understand. Game planning to me week to week for NFL coaches is mind-boggling at times. Tariq Cohen was like the same way, like barely got a target. He's your pass catching running back. How are you the team's pass catching running back and not even getting targeted? I don't simply understand sort of some of the play calling that these coaches have. Pittman is my guy. I think we all have to go to now with no Campbell. Hopefully Ty gets it going. Mo Alley Cox, Howard Bender was all over his call there, had 100 yards. With no Jack Doyle. So we know that he likes throwing to tight ends, Philip Rivers. So Cox is probably another guy we're going to have to, really start considering. Probably going to be a popular waiver ad this week for those in need of tight end play. But yeah, I'm still going to go back to Ty again. The targets have been there. He has to, I think, eventually catch the football. So Hilton and Pittman are the guys I'd go to. Maybe Pascal.
That was my question. What about Pascal? Are you interested at all in Pascal?
A little bit. I mean, deep flyer. I think he's a guy that you can take a look at. Obviously last year you had to have a bigger role with all the injuries that occurred. But I think Pittman has the longer term upside, and now there's that role for him to step right into to be a bigger part of the offense.
What about Keelan Cole over in Jacksonville? Would you rather have Keelan Cole or Laviska Shenault?
I think I would rather have Laviska Shenault. I know Cole, is getting targets and found the end zone. But to me, those guys are just Jags. Conley, Cole. I understand that offense is a bunch of Jags if you really take a look at it outside of Chark. But I feel like Shenault is more, versatile. He gets involved a little bit more. He even had 5 carries last week. So I think eventually he's going to just be a big playmaker for them. He was in college. Didn't play at a huge school. I think it was Colorado. So it's not like he was really jumping all over the map on everybody's radar, but still a second-round pick, still a lot of talent there, and I think eventually he's going to have some big games at some point. So I'd rather invest in him than Cole.
So you're saying Jags isn't just a guy?
Yeah, that's true. I keep on saying that. It's just the guy, and he's on the Jags.
And he's on the Jags.
He's on the Jags. Yeah, they're a bunch of
funny.
I said that last night, and Fancy made a joke, and I didn't really connect it till now. So now it makes more sense. It had to be fleshed out for me here. Jags, just a guy. Yeah, it's true.
Just a guy on the Jags.
Just a guy on the Jags.
Who do not seem to be tanking for Trevor. I just absolutely loved seeing them tied up with Tennessee, who is heavily favored. And then, little
they almost pulled. I mean, they did pull it out in week 1, and then they almost did.
That's right.
It's funny because during the preseason we had all of the FSGA drafts, and people were taking Gardner Minshew as their only quarterback. Taking him basically in the last couple rounds, and we're all scratching our heads a little bit. And I understood that he had some rushing upside, and if you looked at his game logs, like he actually put up some decent fantasy numbers. I don't think anybody drafting him was expecting him to come out the way he started. But Minshew was a really good college quarterback in terms of volume. He was fairly accurate. So yeah, maybe he's just a sleeper that people were hitting on. And if these weapons come through, if he can make good production of what he has around him, yeah, we'll have to keep on seeing how it gets to as the competition gets tougher. But so far so good for those who drafted him.
So I want to know some of your initial impressions as far as if I'm streaming or if I'm playing DFS, who we are targeting versus. Like for me, I'm a lot versus Minnesota. Obviously versus Atlanta, you're probably going to get some points. Like, who are the people that you're kind of targeting versus?
Yeah, I mean, those are obviously the ones you want to jump out against. I don't think much of Cleveland. Again, they're Washington's facing them this week, so who are you really going to look at? Washington, McLaurin, I guess, would be the go-to. What I start doing now, 2 weeks in, is I'm going to start looking at teams that struggle against certain positions and see exactly if we can start targeting those position weaknesses. A team that I'm looking at this week potentially is actually going with the Bengals and Drew Sample. We've seen the Eagles now. Obviously, we saw Higbee have success last week, but Logan Thomas found the end zone against them in week 1. So now I think we're starting to see enough sample size potentially, not to play a pun here, sample size with Drew Sample, but Sample got 9 targets following the zone injury last week. They mentioned that Burrow likes throwing the tight ends. He's very cheap this week. So this is where I start to look at who can we target their weakness at positional, plays. So I'm going to look at Philadelphia this week and get some Drew Sample in my lineup and see if they truly just struggle against the tight end position this year.
I was looking at that earlier. I believe in half-point PPR, they've given up 16.6 points to the tight end position, which is the most in the league. So certainly that's a good way to look at how to stream or to play your DFS. You want to look at all those things. And
you want to get out in the front. Like last year, everybody got on the tight ends against the Cardinals bandwagon. But how long did it take for everybody to get on the tight ends versus the Cardinals bandwagon? If you can find those tendencies early enough, it gives you the edge before everybody else jumps on. So I'll have my dart throws this week in those type of spots where teams may be struggling against certain positions.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So also, I got to ask you about who is going to be the secondary receiver in Green Bay? Because when you look at the point totals for Vegas this week, and this is what I like to do when I'm building my DFS lineups or I'm targeting, I try to look at the games that have the highest implied point totals in Vegas. Mm-hmm. They're good there. They get it. And this just helps. Give yourself a roadmap.
Scary good how close they get point totals and over-unders, man.
It's almost creepy, to be honest. Like, it is. So one of the games with the highest point totals is Green Bay versus New Orleans, 52. There are 4 games that are above 50, and Green Bay versus New Orleans is 52. So I want to know, who are the number 2 receivers in Green Bay and, heck, in New Orleans? Because doesn't look like it's Manny Sanders.
Right. So here's what I'm going to have to take a look at. If Adams plays, that at least Lattimore is going to be the guy that's going to be covering him, which means I'd probably go with the slot receiver, which I think has been Lazard. So I'd probably target Lazard just in this matchup against the Saints. But I mean, Scanling is, MVS is obviously very good as well. So if Adams is out, maybe you still kind of take a look at where they're going to target their defensive strategies there. But again, we just saw the Saints really struggle against tight ends. And not that I'm talking about, Sternberger, but, Waller lines up again in the slot. So maybe it could just be a slot receiver issue that the Saints have. So I still may go Lazard here. If Adams plays, obviously MVS has a little bit more value as well because he won't draw that elite coverage. But I may go Lazard overall this week if I'm picking between the two.
That's a good call. And for New Orleans, what are we doing now without Michael Thomas? Are we going Traquan Smith? Because everyone thought it was going to be Sanders. I personally think a boost goes to Jared Cook, but he didn't really get that much last night. A couple targets, a few yards. He got in the end zone, which was nice. But it didn't really look like there was a clear answer.
I would still go back to the well with, if Thomas is out again, I would still go back to the well with Sanders.
Okay.
Again, and hope that there's some shine off him and people will go away. Again, for me, it's more so the home road splits that I know that Drew Brees has, and the fact that they're going to be back home this week. Again, even though he was in a dome the other day, for whatever reason, Brees just plays better at home. So I'd probably still go with Sanders and think they get it together. I think the coaching staff is going to realize that they should have done more to get Sanders open, more involved in the offense. He shouldn't have had just one catch and that one catch be when they're down 10 with 40 seconds left. Like, that should not be your offense. You need to get those players involved. Kamara is going to dominate though a lot of the passing offense as well. But I still think Sanders is going to be your guy there. But I picked up Traquan Smith in a lot of leagues, especially ones that I had. Michael Thomas. We've been waiting for Smith for a couple of years now. He looked good last week, so I'll give him another bone here as well and see if he can keep on going forward.
Okay, one final question. I just want your early opinion. Who is going to win the matchup between Miami and Jacksonville? Because Miami doesn't look as hot as we thought they might, and Jacksonville seems to have swagger. They are favored. Jacksonville's favored
It's
by
crazy.
2.5. So who do you think it's going to be? You think it's going to be Minshew Magic or Fitz Magic?
I think we're going to see Jacksonville this week, and then I think what we're going to see is Tua maybe be the starter in week 4 for Miami.
That'd be pretty fun. Hey, by the way, how fun was that Justin Herbert start? First of all, it was shocking. I opened it up and I was like, wait, Herbert, what?
I don't understand the thought process that's going through Anthony Lynn. And I tweeted this out earlier. All right, Anthony Lynn saying that Tyrod Taylor gives them the best chance to win. And this was my tweet earlier today. The quarterback that almost lost to the Bengals is better than the quarterback on 15 minutes notice that you drafted to be your quarterback in the future that almost beat the Super Bowl champion.
Mahomes to overtime.
Yeah. So how does that?
The mistake was them not going for it and letting Mahomes get his hands back on the ball. Right. Like any chance to let Kansas City. That was Anthony Lynn. So I feel like maybe he's just deflecting.
I just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense how you almost lose to the Bengals under Tyrod, who had a terrible game, and then you almost beat the Chiefs with Herbert, who played very well, and then next day you say, nah, Tyrod gives us the best chance to win. Were you not watching the same game as the rest of the country? Because it certainly didn't seem that way. Keenan Allen probably doesn't think that so either. You look at his game 1 and how he performed in game 2 with Herbert throwing him the football. I'm sure he would prefer, the better actual arm quarterback there behind under center. So I can't imagine if they lose. Yeah, if they lose this week with Tyrod Taylor under center, I don't know how you don't go back to Herbert.
But I will say one thing, and I just looked up his price in FanDuel. Joshua Kelly. He looks like he's for real. What was that? 29 carries, I think.
I've been in Kelly all since May. Again, another tweet that I was patting my. I like to take early victory laps. Who doesn't?
You have to.
Yeah, exactly. So I was taking the early victory lap on Josh Kelly. Tweeted back in May that he's the guy we should be looking at over Jackson, and now he's basically out touching Eckler. So we're here, exciting. Josh Kelly season.
And by the way, guys, he's totally going to end up in this video for your bargain picks because he's like, I don't know, $5,700 or something.
I mean,
against Carolina, who's given up the most points to the running back position. Both he and Austin Eckler should have great games. Yeah. But look, if they get out to the lead and they want to slow down the game, it looks like they're using Kelly more for the carries. So anyway, pretty exciting stuff. Lots of fun stuff. Lots of young kids making an impact, especially at the quarterback position. Really thrilling. And we've already overstayed our welcome. It's 3:32. It does fly when you're having fun. How are your teams doing, by the way?
I'm 1-1 in a lot of leagues, 2-0-1, and then I've had some tough losses in our Alarm After Hours listener league where I am 0-2.
Guys, yeah. Oh, that stinks. Guys, it's going to be tough out there with injuries, and the thing is, you're just going to have to go through it. A really good fantasy manager can do this. You can still win your leagues, and it really separates the men from the boys. I mean, that's just kind of the way it is, or the women from the girls, or however you want to put it. You can still win this way, and we're going to help you. You can get online 24/7. There's a chat at fantasyalarm.com. It's one of the best things about Fantasy Alarm. There's always an expert that you have access to ask your questions, who to target on the waiver wire, how to make a good trade. We didn't even get to buy lows and sell highs and sell lows and buy highs, whatever. We didn't get to any of that. There's still so much to talk about. So you can get all those questions over in the Fantasy Alarm chat. In the meantime, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Adam Ronis and I will be here taking all your start-sit questions, previewing the Thursday night football game. And then again, Sunday morning, Howard Bender and I will do it for you again at 11 a.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, he is our managing editor and he's brilliant. So if you really want someone really smart to answer your question, just tweet Jon.
I mean, Jen is the one that's basically winning Scott Fishbowl, so
not yet. Haven't won it yet, but
sure.
Fingers
so basically,
crossed.
through 2 weeks, you're right there.
It's very close. It's very close. You guys vote for Jen. All right, that's it. So you guys go make some waiver claims, and we will catch you tomorrow, same time.